tutorial starts with a song, but it's only a few seconds long. Let's get started with animation. Hi friends, we're talking about something which is very familiar to everybody who deals with 2D graphics, for example Photoshop or Adobe Illustrator. And here is a photograph which I did in Frankfurt main station with the evening light here reflecting on the train here. It's called an ICE train, Intercity Express, and it runs at 300 plus kilometers per hour to Cologne, for example. The image is quite interesting because there's a nice mixture of light and of people, and this person here is totally fake. He is from somewhere else. Now, where is he from? This is my blog, by the way. This is him. I rendered him with a motion blur, as you can see. I added two lights actually. One is slightly less powerful from the left and one is from the right and has a strong orange tint. And this is the original photograph, so he's certainly missing here. And in order to get the two things together, you need what is something which is called the alpha channel. Here we have an empty scene and we create a cone. And the cone should have a nice material, so let's give it an Arnold standard surface shader and use one of the presets, for example clay. Now when we render it, let's get a little bit closer and actually add a second object, for example a helix. Oh, actually this is gear. Nice. Let's rotate it a little bit, move it over here, and yeah, that's fine. And this gets another material, new material, Arnold standard surface shader, and another preset, for example the honey. Now when we render it, Arnold render, we see black only and the warning, no light in the scene. Well, fair enough, we need a light, and now we add a light. And we go to lights and sky dome light. So this is the light which wraps around the whole scene, and when we render it now, we see something. Now where is the alpha channel? The alpha channel is crucial for extracting exactly these shapes here and moving them to a compositing software like Final Cut Pro X or Adobe After Effects, etc. You go to View and here you see all channels. That's what we currently see. And when you go down here, you see the red channel only. It is gray because this shows only a representation of how much red it is in the scene. And here is the alpha channel, and the alpha channel is white. Why is that? Well, it takes some time to find out if you don't know about it. The sky dome light is not just a light, it's also a sphere which wraps around the whole scene, and it basically kills the alpha channel for these two objects. Here in the attribute editor we have the settings, and we can change the visibility of the camera from 1 to 0. And that means that we don't see that white light here, but we see its effect on the objects. How does this render now? And you see now we have a nice alpha channel. This is all channels. You see the effect here of the sky dome light, and this is the alpha channel. So this is very much okay. Now we can export this, and that's actually what we're going to do now. So let's re-render it. We could actually, by the way, use the render settings here, give it a name, and choose as the image format, for example, EXR. If you choose JPEG, it doesn't carry and transport the alpha channel because JPEG is just one channel only. PNG the same, but TIFF, for example, does carry the alpha channel. And for example, when you choose TIFF, you see skip alpha here. So if you don't want the alpha channel, which is automatically being rendered when you choose TIFF here, you just tick this skip alpha. But we want an alpha channel, and once you've set all these things with rendering a whole series of frames from 1 to 10 in this case, unless you change it, with a certain format down here, and then go to rendering, from modeling to rendering, and go to rendering, and depending on your version of Maya, you can batch render or render the sequence, and then you choose your camera, and then the sequence will be rendered with the alpha channel. So single images with the alpha channel. Now we will deal only with a single image here, so we can use this command here where we do have the alpha channel. Actually, we have all channels here, and we save this now. When we save this, just a standard saving process, we save a JPEG file. And we cannot choose what kind of file type we have here. And the JPEG, as I said, kills the alpha channel. Use the save image options here. You can't get other choices as well. So just 8-bit only, enabled or disabled. Use display settings, etc. This does not help much, but file save multi-layer EXR does help. So you save a multi-layer EXR here, and we call it, well, cone 3, because I tried it out before, and you see it's going to be saved as a multi-layer EXR file. Now EXR is a format which not all pieces of software can read, but I think most can, and with a certain plugin you can actually import them. All right, if you're not want to deal with EXRs, just try TIFFs, which is fine, but which you cannot reach here. So this is the standard way to export images here, and EXR is a very powerful file system. Now I go to Photoshop, for example, and I'm importing the Cone 3 EXR. It asks me, how do you want to deal, this is a German user interface, how do you want to deal with the alpha information, which is very good because it shows me that it does carry the alpha channel as transparency or as just the alpha channel. I use the transparency. I think there's not a big difference anyway. And here you see a nice picture of our alpha channel. Now you go to select. In German it's Auswahl. Auswahl, you choose the selection here, and you have these little ants running around our objects. When you copy that and then create a new image, or load a new image here, for example this, and you paste your geometry in here, it lands like we want it in the scene with the alpha channel. No white around it, just our beautiful two objects here. Final remark, and I made a few tutorials about this already, about the shadow. Where are the shadows here? And just a simple hint. For a shadow we need a plane, for example, where the shadow falls onto. When we view the alpha channel, we see that plane. And we don't want that plane, we just want to catch that shadow. That's why we right mouse click and create a new material just for the ground plane. And here we go to Arnold. And Arnold has a special shader which does not render, but which catches the shadow. And it's called AI Shadow Matte. Just brief meditation here. We have the assign new materials, Arnold, and one of the Arnold standard sort of shaders is the shadow matte. That's what we're going to choose now. And when we render it now, we see the alpha channel of these two objects here. And actually, in order to see the shadow better, we reduce the sky dome light here, the intensity, to a minimum, like from 1 to 0.1. And we introduce a light which transports a very nice shadow, which is the area light. You could use a spotlight as well. So it points from this side into the scene. When we render it now, actually we untick normalize, that makes the light much stronger. Now we save this as a multilayer EXR again, call it cone 4 for example, and load that file into our compositing software like After Effects, Premiere or whatever. Use the transparency again. Here you see the shadow. It's very grainy because our anti-aliasing settings are low, only 3. If you raise them in the render settings, you'll be fine and have a nice soft shadow here. But now we can go again to, we select the alpha channel, copy, and when we paste it here now, we see that the shadow is coming with it. It's a very strong shadow really, which moves all the way with our object. Here you see the end of our plane in the rendering, and if you don't want to see that, you need to extend that plane. And with this, I wish you a very good day. Bye bye.